Welcome back. All right, so talked about Buffalo earlier. Now I want to talk about the New Jersey Devils. So another team in the East that is not going to make the playoffs. Expectations were higher for New Jersey this year. They were maybe not expected to make the playoffs in the Metro, but to be a little more competitive than they've been. And they've lost 7 games in a row. So again, I took a different approach with New Jersey than I have with other teams. And I'm going to continue to do this throughout. So for New Jersey, really to me, it comes down to what I'm terming the Triple H effect on this team. There's 3 guys. Last name starts with H, who may very well decide where this thing goes next year and how New Jersey builds around them and which parts they keep and which ones they jettison could go a long way to deciding what New Jersey's future is, right? So you have Jack Hughes, 20 years of age, has an extension in place for $8 million a year until 2030. This year, in 28 games played, 12 goals, 15 assists, 27 points. It has been a very good season for him, but he has missed a number of games. And so the question becomes one of, so is he going to be able to play the full 82 next year? Is he going to be able to stay healthy the rest of this year? And all of that. He's currently on the protocol list, but he's not going to stay there for that long. Won't miss that many games. So Hughes really could very well be the guy where how he progresses and what he turns into will tell you how much longer New Jersey stays outside the playoffs. Nico Hischier, 23 years of age, $7.25 million a season until 2027. This year, in 40 games, 9 goals, 16 assists, 25 points. It's been a mixed bag for Hischier. Offensively, probably not where he wants to be right now. Defensively, there's good, there's bad in that as well. He projects to be one of the better two-way forwards in the game at some point soon. And you can have the debate about how high that peak is going to be for him as a two-way forward and whether or not it eventually means Selke votes or not, right? So Hischier is going to be a key part. And then Dougie Hamilton, who they signed to that very rich contract, $9 million a year until 2028. He's currently 28 years of age. So I don't think they sign Hamilton to that big deal, expecting to be outside the playoffs for long during it. Hamilton, just the 30 games played this year, 7 goals, 13 assists, 20 points. And so I think it's been good with Hamilton. I totally get why Carolina looked at his ask and said, nope, we're not willing to spend that much. But I also understand why Dougie Hamilton goes out and tries to get the maximum amount of money he can. He can only play hockey for so long. Then you get into a couple of veterans here I wanted to touch on. So Thomas Tatar, 31 years of age, $4.5 million cap hit until next year. So there's term there. It's been okay for him in New Jersey, but 8 goals and 9 assists in 43 games. Probably less than he would like to have seen on his goal totals especially. And probably a little less than New Jersey envisioned when they signed him. Andreas Johnsson, or Johnson, and I've heard both. I've started to hear Johnsson a lot more again. So honestly, I don't think it's a big deal whether you go with Johnsson or Johnson. But hey, $3.4 million until next year. So there's term on a contract if they decide to move him. And in 44 games, 11 goals, 14 assists, 25 points. He has had a solid enough year that I would think somebody would call in regards to whether or not he's available. And at 27 years of age, it's possible that New Jersey would say, yeah, and for the right price, maybe they add draft picks. Because right now they only have 2 extra 4th-round draft picks for 2022. They don't have any extra draft picks outside of that. And with Tatar being 31 years of age, if somebody calls, they will absolutely listen. Then you get into the younger players who might be key guys going forward. Sharon Govich, 23 years of age, 40 games, 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points. I'm a big fan of Sharon Govich. I say, and I'll say again, he is a player whose point totals don't tell you how useful he is and always feels like he should have more than that. So he's on pace for 34 points approximately. He's on pace for approximately 16 goals. And honestly, I think he's been better than that. Kuokkanen, 23 years of age as well. 43 games, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points. I would think he probably sticks around as well. McLeod, 24 years of age, 42 games, 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. If someone called, they'd probably listen with McLeod. But again, I'm not sure how much return you get on that. And then Dawson Mercer, who's been fantastic. 46 games, 9 goals, 16 assists, 25 points. The interesting thing is, for all of the discussions about Hischier and whether or not he eventually becomes a Selke-level player as a two-way forward, Mercer, at 20, already looks like he's got that ability to potentially be a shutdown forward as well as a guy who scores a bunch of points. And that's really where you're at if you want to get compared to Bergeron. So Mercer's been fantastic in what's been a down year and a disappointing year for New Jersey. You can point to Hughes, you can point to Hischier, you can point to Hamilton and say, yeah, the future will be, or to Mercer and say the future should be okay. And with Hamilton, you have that defenseman for the present. Then you get into a couple of guys who we'll see. Severson, 28 years of age, makes $4.16 million until next year. 44 games this year, 6 goals, 16 assists, 22 points. However, on the defensive side of things, I totally understand why there are New Jersey fans that would love to see him get traded. If New Jersey made him available, and again at that cap hit of $4.16 million, I think somebody would make that call. Graves, 26 years of age, $3.16 million until next year. 41 games, 3 goals, 14 assists, 17 points. And they're in that spot where they're young enough that if New Jersey feels like they can be a playoff team next year, maybe you don't make Severson or Graves available, but if they feel like this could be a while longer, maybe you make one available because there's the possibility that by the time that this team is competitive, one or the other could be, older and, there's that problem there. Siegenthaler, young defenseman, 24 games, 46 games, 9 assists for him. I think he's had a good season. I think he's been useful for them defensively. Obviously, no goals for him, but that's not what they're paying him for. And then you got Ty Smith, and really there's varying opinions on what Smith's upside is, whether he's going to be a top 4, whether he could end up being a top 2 at some point. But this year, 38 games, 1 goal, 9 assists, 10 points. And yeah, he has had one of the disappointing seasons among members of the New Jersey Devils. When you get into New Jersey, too, the goaltending is key. Mackenzie Blackwood, now 25 years of age, making $2.8 million until next year. That's a bargain. However, this year has been tough for him. 9-9-3 and an .894 save percentage. Blackwood has not looked like Mackenzie Blackwood. Now there's been injuries and he's been on the protocol list, and so it's been stop and start for him the whole way through. But I would think that New Jersey, looking at their goaltending situation, might want to bring somebody else in, especially with Bernier being sidelined right now. 33 years of age for Bernier, $4.125 million until next year. But there's some real question about when Bernier is going to play again. Whether Bernier is going to play again becomes a question as well at 33 years of age. His record before the injury, 4-4-1 with a .902 save percentage. So again, it's too bad because Bernier was off to a decent start to his season, and then it's all sidelined. So the goaltending question for New Jersey, I think, is still there. Like, I still believe Blackwood can be the guy, but this year he hasn't really had that. You're hoping for that really, really strong season from him, and it really hasn't happened yet. So UFAs, they could rent out at the deadline. You have VC, who has been good for New Jersey. So if they opted to instead give him a 1 or 2 year extension, I'd be in favor of that. VC's looked better in New Jersey than he did in Toronto, and better than he did in Vancouver last year. So I think he may have found himself a new home. I'd say he looks better in New Jersey than Buffalo, too, before that. PK Subban, always discussed. In order for them to move him, they'd have to keep a lot of that salary on their books. But again, he's a UFA this coming summer, so it's just, keeping his money on the books for now. So Subban could end up getting moved. I can't see New Jersey bringing him back, and I can't see him wanting to go back to New Jersey either. Subban is in for a definite hit on how much money he makes next season. I do expect him to stick around, though, and make less money next year and probably end up on a team that has a better chance of winning a Stanley Cup. It's at this point in a guy's career where it goes from, okay, I've made all that money, now I want a chance to win a Stanley Cup. And so for Subban, he may end up playing a lesser role next year on a different team. But he may very well be moved at the deadline. It's going to be tough because half the league is in some form of cap heck right now. John Gillies has been solid when he's been in there. He doesn't win the games, though. And the problem is his numbers aren't bad, but they don't win with them in there. And Geertson's a UFA this summer. If somebody wants a guy who can throw punches here and there and play an energy role, Geertson's able to do that. And then the RFA list is interesting because what I don't get into up here is Jesper Bratt. Bratt's been fantastic. And he's a guy that I think they have to give a long-term contract to. Zacha, probably a 3-year contract for Zacha, but Zacha's trending in the right direction as well. I think both Bratt and Zacha are going to be part of this team for a while yet. Bratt, again, should probably get the longer term, I'll say 5-year extension. Zacha, probably 2 or 3. Boquist's been good lately. He'll probably end up getting a renewal, probably a qualifying offer type thing. Studenic, qualifying offer for him, depth forward. Jaros, I would think Jaros probably available at the deadline. White may very well be the same. He cleared waivers not that long ago. And then there's Miles Wood. So forgotten in all this is that Wood hasn't been in the lineup, and that does have a negative impact on the New Jersey Devils. Miles Wood's excellent. So he will be an RFA this summer. And with him not playing very much this year, I'm calling it probably a bridge deal and hoping to remain healthy after this season and earn himself a raise on the next deal. So the upcoming players for New Jersey, it's an interesting list. You have Holtz, who has been very good at the AHL level in terms of putting up goals and points. The NHL level, it didn't translate as well, but he's very young. And Holtz projects to be a very good goal scorer, which is important because Hughes, I think, prefers to pass the puck. He can make those goals work, though. Hischier, I think, also prefers to pass. Holtz on a line with either of them could lead to them getting a whole bunch of assists. And again, it's if Holtz reaches that level that he's expected to. Then you've got Chase Stillman. You've got Nolan Foote. Mahatmadulin. I hope Mahatmadulin ends up making his debut soon. I want to see that name on the back of a jersey. I think that'd be fantastic. Bending all the way around the numbers is how I envision it. And then there's Luke Hughes. Luke Hughes, of course, blue liner. And once Luke Hughes is ready to jump in, whether that's next year or when that happens, that could completely change the look on the blue line. And if Luke Hughes signs, does that then mean that a Damon Severson would be more likely to be available because you feel that you have your blue line set to go? Or if you're not willing to get rid of Severson, does that maybe mean, okay, well, Ty Smith, we'll put him on the market and see what we can get because we have Luke Hughes coming in. So there's a lot of question marks with New Jersey that they have time to answer before the deadline. And then, again, going into the draft, going into free agency, there'll be more of these questions. Coaching is the funny thing to me with New Jersey. So Peter DeBoer, I remember a lot of complaining about his coaching style before he was fired. And he ends up in San Jose and then gets fired from there, and now he's in Vegas. Vegas is doing pretty well. John Hines, a lot of complaints about John Hines. Goes to Nashville. Nashville doing pretty well. And now we got Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff, a lot of complaints about Lindy Ruff as well. And I do wonder, like with Lou Lamoriello, how long, or not Lou Lamoriello, with this team being run how it is now, get Lamoriello stuck in my head because I was doing the look into their past and everything. Of course, Lou being GM just gets stuck in my head. But with the past being as the past is, does that mean that Lindy Ruff gets a longer amount of time to maybe turn this around, which might drive New Jersey fans a little bit crazy? But when you look at the coaching history in New Jersey, it's been a pretty short leash for a lot of coaches, and there's been a lot of coaches cycled through. And then you get into, if you include like the guys who've been interim coaches, it's a long list. Now, what's interesting to me is if you look at the years they had their greatest success and won Stanley Cups, Jacques Lemaire was their coach in 95, Larry Robinson in 2000, and Pat Burns in 2003. All three of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. And all three of them led this team on fantastic runs when they won the Cup. I was very happy for Pat Burns. He had earned himself Stanley Cup. He'd earned himself Cup before that, just didn't have a team that could do it. He was that good of a coach. So what's interesting to me is when I look at Lindy Ruff and then I look at these three here, I say Lindy Ruff likely isn't the coach when New Jersey becomes a contending team. And so it's a matter of finding the next guy. If this team's going to get back to 2003 levels of success and win a fourth Stanley Cup as an organization, Lindy Ruff's probably gone by then. But we have seen coaches stuck with for a long time. Blashill in Detroit comes to mind, where a GM might look and say, it's not really the coach's fault. And so the question that I would have is, so if the belief is that this team just isn't a playoff team, then there's a limited amount of blame that can go to Lindy Ruff. If the belief is this team would be much better without Ruff behind the bench, I do wonder which numbers would get better if that was the case. It does feel like New Jersey is closer than some of the others that are below the playoff line in the East to actually getting into contention. And the moves made between now and the trade deadline, and then from the trade deadline into the draft, could very well show us just how close they're getting. I don't think signing Dougie Hamilton was terrible, because this was a team with a lot of cap space, and they still have a lot of cap space. And even though they've signed Hischier and Hughes, and these are big contracts, and this is a lot of money combined between these three guys, they still have some flexibility there to bring somebody in. And whether it's a goaltender that comes in to play 1A, 1B with Blackwood, if Bernier's not able to get back to being an NHL-level goaltender, or whether they make an improvement on the blue line. Whatever they end up doing, it's going to be very interesting to watch. And again, that improvement could come from within if Mahatmadulin, Hughes, Foote, Stillman, Holtz, if any combination of these five are able to come in and compete and give them that improved depth next year, they could surprise some people. But again, we're still in the should, maybe, could, possibly, maybes. There's a lot of that with the New Jersey Devils. And it's been a while. It's been a while since New Jersey was really and truly a contender. And it's a matter of how you get back there. So if you're a Devils fan, let me know in the comment section below your feelings on the New Jersey Devils this year. Are they closer to competing for a playoff spot? Or are we in a situation where it's just, it's 1 year after the other, feels kind of the same, and they're kind of spinning their wheels? How do you feel about where they're at and what the future looks like? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.